This past NBA offseason was defined by a handful of massive trades. And now I know it's just a couple of weeks into the season, but I want to go ahead and regrade these deals based off how it's impacted these teams to start this season. Really quickly though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Now the whole goal of Squarespace is to provide you all the tools that you need in order to grow something online, whatever you want to grow online with a website-based platform. And in order to make that easier on you, they have a deal for you as well. You can click the link in the description. You can go to squarespace.com/sporty. You can use code sporting and get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website at Squarespace. And let me just tell you quickly about some of my favorite things about Squarespace. For one, the versatility is key. Like, you want to be able to go in a lot of different directions. You want to have a lot of different options in terms of different avenues you can take and how you want to build your website and what you want to build it around. So if you want to build it around a blog and discussion and things that you want to talk about, sharing your passion with other people and discussing that with other people, you can also create a storefront to sell digital or physical products and a ton of different other things on Squarespace. And then my other favorite thing is certainly the analytics, because anytime you want to grow anything online, trust me, you're going to want numbers. You're going to want information behind it. You're going to want to understand where people are coming from, how they're getting to your site. And those numbers are going to be what's going to allow you to continue to grow, whether it be your blog, whether it be your store, whether it be whatever you want to create on Squarespace. And they do a fantastic job of providing you those numbers so that you can then use those to continue to grow your presence online. So again, if you're looking to grow something online with a website-based platform, Squarespace is the place to be. You can click that link in the description for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website at squarespace.com/sporting using code sporting. And thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. And of course, for me, we have to start with the Rudy Gobert trade. And this is a deal that already to me gives me similar vibes of what happened with the Russell Westbrook trade for the Lakers, where it felt like a lot, felt like a weird fit. And certainly in terms of value, the Lakers didn't give up as much as Minnesota gave up in the Rudy Gobert trade, but it already feels like the exact same thing to me. A piece that doesn't quite fit on a team that was good before the guy got there, and now they're just not quite as good, and you can't really pinpoint exactly what is going wrong here. And so I'm going to start with the Minnesota side of this. At the time I gave the Gobert trade a D. Right now, based off what we've observed to begin this season, I'm going to give it a D-, because the one thing that I held on to for the Minnesota part of this trade was in the regular season, it felt like an upgrade. It felt like Minnesota could win 50 games this year, and it felt like they would be a good regular season team because Rudy Gobert has always been a really impactful, efficient, big time advanced numbers type guy in the regular season. And I always felt like, that lineup that they were going to be able to put together with McDaniels, Russell, Edwards, Towns, and Gobert, even if the Towns and Gobert fit was going to be a little bit weird, they were going to be good enough that in the regular season, it would make sense and then it would fall apart in the playoffs. That's how I felt about the deal at the time. They gave up too much for basically a regular season upgrade. Yeah, that hasn't even materialized in the regular season yet. And again, I can't escape this feeling that it feels exactly like the Russell Westbrook thing. It just, I know they haven't played that many games. I know we're not even 25% of the way through the year. And I typically like to judge teams based off their first 25, 30 games before I really try and make some sweeping judgments. But it's been so awkward already that I'm already concerned about this for Minnesota. I was concerned about the compensation and what they gave up in the first place, but now seeing the product on the floor, I'm even more concerned. It's one of those things where you can't make a move like this that makes Anthony Edwards worse, and he doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like he knows how to play in limited space with Gobert on the floor, and Cat hasn't looked comfortable either in terms of his offensive skill set and how it fits alongside Rudy Gobert's, and we're already seeing all the typical Rudy Gobert stuff offensively, where teams are willing to switch smaller guys onto him, and he's not able to punish them, whether it be on the glass or otherwise, and that's a huge issue for them, and it's been a Rudy Gobert thing for a long time. We've talked about this for years. The Rudy Gobert stuff, in terms of him getting played off the floor in the playoffs and not being able to fit, it actually isn't that much of a defensive issue. It's an offensive issue, right? Like, their defense has been fine. I think they're one of the top 10 defensive rated teams in the league. They're not as good as they were at times last year because their defensive structure is completely different. Last year, they were this aggressive, blitzing team. This year, not so much because they have, Gobert at the rim and Cat playing the four. They're just not able to play, as aggressively, especially in ball screen coverages as they were in the past. But the issue for Rudy Gobert really has always been an offensive thing. If he was an above average offensive player, he'd be incredible for this team because he can protect the rim for you. And if you want to try and switch against this team, Cat and Gobert could punish you at the rim and nothing would matter. But the problem is he can't score against anybody. He's strictly a lob and garbage buckets kind of five. And when you're invested to this level in terms of assets and money into someone like that in Rudy Gobert, it's a huge problem. And it's already seemed awkward. Like, there's some weird playmaking overlap between Cat and Russell and Edwards, but there's not as much space on the floor because Gobert's out there. They don't have those high energy effort, role player guys like Jared Vanderbilt and Patrick Beverly out there because those guys are gone, and they have completely changed the structure of their roster while also giving up an incredible amount of value in terms of draft picks and assets in a way that it kind of seems like has made their team worse. Because the one thing that we've seen for years and years and years in the league in terms of underperforming teams that you look at their roster and you see the talent, but they underperform, is their best best lineup is not very good. And the Timberwolves have one of the worst 5-man lineups in terms of their starters. The guys are supposed to begin and end the games. They don't play well together. It doesn't work well together. And that is one of the biggest, indicators of a team that is going to underperform. And it's only a handful of games, and we'll see what's going to happen the rest of the year. For me, it's a D-. And on the other side of this, for Utah, it's by far an A+. It's beyond an A+. We're going to talk about the Mitchell trade for them later. Again, I think it's also an A+. And even if Utah was 0-15 to start the season, I still think that the Gobert trade is an absolute win for them just in terms of the amount of assets. I don't really feel like we need to, relitigate that too much, right? Like it's very clear at the time that they got an incredible amount of value, given his age, given his positional value, given his contract, all that stuff. And it's looked even better given how well they've started to begin this year and how well some of those pieces they've gotten in both the Gobert and Mitchell trades have looked to begin the year. Now, we move on now to a trade that I'm feeling a little bit wrong about right now, and that is the DeJounte Murray deal. Now, at the time for San Antonio, I really liked the deal, and I still really like the deal for San Antonio. I'm going to give them an A+ still for the deal. It was great value, and that has kind of been added to the fact that guys like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson have been playing really well for them, and it feels like they've pretty seamlessly replaced the on-ball creation of DeJounte Murray and the star power, quote-unquote, of DeJounte Murray in a way that I certainly wasn't anticipating, and to me, that just even makes the trade even better, that you can trade away a guy in DeJounte Murray that's going to need a new contract soon for the amount of value they got in exchange for him in terms of draft picks, and then also have other guys step into that role and develop. It's great for them. But for Atlanta, I was very skeptical about this deal for them for one very, very big reason, and I just didn't know how the Murray-Trae Young fit was going to go. Trae Young has been empowered almost more than any other player in the league at the beginning of their career to just be the primary offensive focal point guy. It's like him and Luka, they showed up, they were really good, and they immediately became one of the most highest usage players in the entire league, and Luka's been incredible at it, and Trae at times at the end of games has just been a little bit unpredictable, especially in the postseason, and it's just different when the guy's 6'2" compared to when the guy's 6'9". There's just less things that Trae can do, and it's always like high ball screen and attack from there, and I just felt like he was going to have been really used to that and struggle to transition into a new role alongside DeJounte Murray, and as a floor spacer, I didn't trust DeJounte to be like a really good spacer alongside Trae, and that fit was going to be weird to me. Yeah, that hasn't been a problem for them. They figured it out. It's not like Trae Young's running around like Steph Curry and doing a ton of really cool off-ball stuff, but he is playing off the ball. He is actually moving without the ball, and there is some really cool stuff happening here in terms of different ways they can attack specifically at the end of games, and it just looks so much cleaner. It looks like a great fit, and obviously defensively Murray helps them a ton as well, and it's turned out to be a really, really good move. Now, I don't know still, moving forward, if the amount of value they gave up is going to be smart ultimately. That's why I'm going to give them an A here rather than an A+, but I'm certainly willing to admit that, again, just a handful of games into the year, that I was at least a little bit wrong in terms of how the fit would work between these two guys, and it's worked much better than I thought that it would to begin the season. And then the last deal, you want to talk about the ultimate win-win trade, Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. Spoiler alert, I'm giving both of these teams an A+ for this deal. Cleveland has been, without argument, one of the best teams in the league to begin this season, and that stems almost directly from the Donovan Mitchell trade, because Darius Garland got hurt to begin the year. He's back now, but he missed, basically the entirety of the first 8 or 9 games that they played this year, and they looked really, really good. All the defensive stuff with Allen and Mobley has been there. They've been able to cobble together some shooting and some floor spacing off the ball, and Mitchell has been unbelievable, not just offensively. I mean, we knew Donovan Mitchell was a really good offensive player, a guy that's capable of scoring 30 on any given night, really good off the dribble shooter, can get to the rim, incredible athlete, all that stuff. But defensively, there's been an energy and an effort level to him, really in all aspects of the game, that was missing for him, certainly at the end of the year last year in Utah, and it seems like he's been invigorated by this new situation in Cleveland. And then once Garland then showed up and has now been playing alongside Mitchell, that gives them something that they just didn't have last year. Another offensive creator alongside Darius Garland. Garland, a guy that wants to be a point guard, a guy that wants to give the ball up. He wants to create for others, but last year had to be more of a scorer than he ever really wanted to be, because they needed his offense that badly. And that fit of those two guys, at least offensively, has been unbelievable to watch to begin the season. And overall for Cleveland, it's a fantastic deal for them. Yes, some of the pieces that they moved to Utah have been playing well, but they're a much, much better basketball team. Still with some things to figure out defensively with those two guards and trying to figure out who's going to run the three long term, but an incredible deal for them, especially given the value they gave up. And then for Utah, again, even if they didn't start the year that well, it's still a good deal for them ultimately, because Lauri Markkanen looks like a piece. Like, Colin Sexton's probably going to be something. They've got all these future picks from Cleveland, even though you could have made the argument that maybe the Knicks picks would have been better. There's just no way that you can make an argument that this has ended up being a bad deal for them. And an incredible offseason for a team that traded away all these guys and, brought in some younger players and has still been a good basketball team to begin the season. It has all these future assets. They've set themselves up incredibly, incredibly well. And ultimately, the only negative thing I have to say in the entirety of this video is how the fit with Rudy Gobert in Minnesota has looked. But ultimately, like I said, this is just a handful of games. These guys are all going to play, 100 plus games probably at least, for these teams over the next couple of seasons, assuming injuries and assuming there's no injuries, assuming they stick with these teams. Like, there's going to be a lot more games to evaluate this and these postseason games, and we're going to really see what it looks like. But I want to take a moment, just give my thoughts about what these trades have looked like to begin this season.